Welcome to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Ono.
And I'm Cheta Wanze.
Cheta, it's been quite a busy week from the last time we spoke. And of course, after the party conference season, which was quite interesting, the next target in everyone's mind is November, when the Chancellor lays out the spending plan for the country. Now, in the run-up to the November budget, figures have started coming in about the indication of the economy. And this is one thing you were very keen to talk about, Cheta. So what is it about the economy that is taking you in all the right or maybe wrong places?
I mean, it's good day, everyone. I think the economy is something that needs to be talked about a lot more. Not just in the UK, but in Nigeria, where I'm just coming from, um, in so many other places, in the West generally, there are not many economies that are doing very well at the moment, and it's feeding into politics, and it's one of the things. It's, in short, for me, it's the main thing that is actually feeding the rise of far right politics in various parts of the West, and in countries like Nigeria, the rise of ethnic politics. Basically, to paraphrase Bill Clinton, is the economy stupid? Things are tough for people. For many people, they're increasingly having more want than money, and this is it's leading to anger. And rather than politicians facing these issues head on, they are stoking nativist politics, all sorts of them kind of politics, and that's, for me, is a cry shame.
And so that's quite interesting. When I first moved here with my family, I remember I could feel in a cart. I used to joke that I'll go to the shop in a cart with about what, 40 pounds, and everyone was okay. And then the Ukraine war started. Supplies were cut especially with well, not cut, were
We're
strained.
constrained.
Yeah, and suddenly you had to go like to the shop with double of what you would previously to get less than half. And now there's been up and down, and I see that happening again. It's almost like you go to the shop, you're thinking, yesterday, as like the famous rappers will say, yesterday's price is not today's price, and we see that happening. But you know what? Let's start with jobs, especially for African heritage migrants. Many of whom have their lives around the service sector. So when you see a lot of people come from the continent, they go straight into healthcare, logistics, hospitality, transport. Basically the services, but increasingly we see news of a slowing, uh, that the other sector is slowing. So the latest PMI, that's the services PMI, that's Services Purchasing Managers Index, which is an economic indicator that measures the health of the service sector. The latest PMI sits barely above the stagnation line at 50.8. So that means there's problem. If we knock off that 0.8 decimal points, you're just hanging in there, and then if anything happens, God forbid, another uh pandemic or another war opens up in a different front, then you're in real trouble. But it's not just that the service PMI is at that worrying level. It's also that companies are cutting jobs under pressures from what they call sharply rising staff cost. So you go to data shows you that, well, there's not much uh people, or there are no many vacancies. However, when you then dig into the reason why there are not many vacancies, you realize that jobs are being cut. So what's to be done, Cheta?
So when I think when a sort of period of that's close to a perfect storm. So first things first, you reeled off a lot of technical terms, like the typical politician who wants to bamboozle the audience. So let's explain what PMI is so that people will understand.
Oh
PMI
no,
is
I explained what PMI was.
Oh, you did not. You just went on service PMI, service PMI.
Yeah, I said it's an in it's
Have you
An
finished?
economic indicator that measures the health of the service sector. You see, you ain't listening to me.
I
But
was
carry on.
listening. You did not. So what does it? So see, PMI basically measures trends both in manufacturing and in service. Mm. It's called Purchasing Managers Index, and it's either survey based. Sometimes it's a leading indicator. Now, when you have a PMI of above 50, it shows that that the economy is expanding. When you have PMI of below 50, it shows that the economy is contracting. There's a decline, and exactly 50 is no change. So you said that the PMI is 40 something, Abby.
No, I said 50.8. See, Cheta, you
50.8.
were not
Okay.
listening to me.
Well, whatever.
Aha, aha.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, yes. Okay. That I was caught. I was caught there. Anyway, the PMI is the truth is that the PMI has in the services sector has been contracting for a while. A 50.8 PMI actually indicates that there may be growth over the last measurement period, which is usually monthly. Um, Essentially, one of the things that is happening, and it's not just with regards to PMI, with regards to the job market as a whole, is the fact that AI, and this is one of the big elephants in the room. I'm also guilty of it, I wouldn't lie. In my work with them, some research assistants who left my organization, we've not replaced them. Why? Because we have access to AI. And if you look at it at a on a very on a micro level, it means young people who otherwise would have been employed are not being employed. This is note that my organization is very West Africa focused, but this is also a problem in this part of the world. It's not just I mean, West Africa tends to be behind when it comes to adoption of technology. So things like AI, we were behind in adopting it. Yet, nevertheless, what you find is increasingly for the uh, more root work, the jobs such as data entry, and all of that, people are increasingly beginning to use AI. People at higher levels of management, and that has a knock-on effect. I think it's something that needs to be looked at. I don't want to be a Luddite, so while I was in Nigeria, I actually gathered everybody in my department because I'm the boss at that place, and organized an AI training, because especially for those of us in the services sector, um, there are advantages to using AI. It's faster. It gives you results faster, but AI has to be used properly. However, away from that and focusing back to what we're talking about, there's that knock-on effect. People in the last year in my unit, we've lost three people who otherwise would have replaced. We found that we can use AI to do their jobs. So they haven't been replaced. That is happening in the UK as well. Um, Now, going back to the example that you talked about, going back to what you talked about your buying stuff, and then those stuff got more expensive. You watch them get more expensive. It's a supply chain thing. The world, following the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 90s, the world became more of a globalized village, and supply chains became very, very important. Um, and what happened is geopolitical events became more important. As an example, you talked about the Ukraine war. In the UK, when the Ukraine war started, something that people almost immediately noticed was that things like sunflower oil disappeared from the shelves. If you've been taking notes in the UK over the last few months, there's been a sort of shortage of sardines in sunflower oil. I don't know if you've noticed this at whether it's this Waitrose, Tesco, Aldi, and Sainsbury's. Those are the places that I pop into every once in a while. Tesco and Aldi more.
We've been banned from buying sardines, so sardines I won't know.
Okay, no, I love sardines. I really love sardines. But they've so I couldn't get enough of sardines while I was in Nigeria because I've been missing them here. Um, Now, all of that stuff is due to supply chain shocks. Okay, the sardine stuff is due to climate change. Most sardines are harvested off Morocco, and there's the coral reef there. I mean, I read the explanation in the report. There's been something to do with the coral reef or something which the sardines feed off. Bottom line is global supply chains are affected. So one effect, an event somewhere. Think, for example, about things like whenever there's tension between the US and China, most of the world's manufacturing output is from China. Think of when the Houthis were blocking were attacking shipping going through the Suez Canal because of what was happening in Gaza. Hopefully, the current ceasefire will hold up. All of these things add costs to what people are doing. So you are looking at a situation where jobs are being lost or jobs are not being created because of supply chain shocks, because of the return of geopolitics in a heavy way. People are actually beginning to feel the impact, and politicians just go about pretending that it's not happening and then blaming immigrants. So even
I,
if all the immigrants are chased away, these problems will still persist. Consider this scenario. Germany used to get cheap gas from Russia prior to the war. Now Germany gets gas at 4 times the cost from places like the US, places like Qatar. And it's going to have or it is having an effect on German industry and cost of living in Germany. But do you hear German politicians? If you follow German politics, you don't hear German politicians talking about these real causes and as whether they want to paint Vladimir Putin as evil or whatever is another thing. The fact is, geographical realities mean that gas from Russia will always be cheaper for the Germans. But German politicians ignoring that. The same dynamic is playing out in the UK. There are real reasons, I don't want to say the P word, there are real reasons that the UK economy is in trouble. But rather than
oh,
address,
I'll help you. Brexit.
it was you that broke the
Brexit.
party whip, not me. Rather than
Brexit was
address those
Brexit was a
issues,
disaster.
yeah, rather than address those issues, they're playing politics with immigration. If we go back home to Nigeria, there are real reasons for the insecurity in the middle belt is affecting food prices. Rather than address that, we are talking Yoruba versus Igbo. So politicians everywhere have this same proclivity of trying to apply misdirection. And my fear is that in doing that misdirection, they are creating angrier publics. Their people are angrier and increasingly angry. And the problem with anger, it's not an accident that we are recording in the week before the fifth anniversary of the Lekki massacre, which is the seminal event that drove a lot of us from Nigeria. Remember how the Lekki massacre started, or how the events that culminated in the Lekki massacre, how it started. Basically, it was uncontrolled, and government have been ignoring a problem for a very long time. And that's what we're seeing in different parts of the world now. Governments are ignoring real problems and trying to misdirect people. That anger will burst somewhere. Think about it. Think about this. There was a video I saw on TikTok by some American lady named Mary, who demonstrated how groceries in Walmart increased between 2020 and 2025. I think she actually went and showed a cart, her Walmart wallet, and showed that things that she bought for about $10 in 2020 were costing $15 in 2025. I mean, her salary hadn't increased by 50%. So essentially, she was being squeezed. And that's happening to all of us. Well, except if you're Elon Musk and his people.
And I mean, that was a good explanation, Tata. And just before I carry on, I want to give you a shout out to anger because you spoke a lot about anger. But shout out to the anger of the Gen Z, especially in Nepal, who more or less force a change in their government. Yeah,
Madagascar just
to
forced the change
Madagascar
as
as
well.
well. Yes, so
And so I tend to be wary of such things because same kind of anger, Gen Z reacted, two different outcomes. So
Oh yeah, but
Madagascar now has an interim government led by a very Nepal now has an
yeah.
interim government led by a very respected person who has been in the trenches for a long time and who has committed to handing over power after organizing an election within a finite timeline. Madagascar, on the other hand, has a military government. And
Uh,
we
y-
both know that military governments, you
y-
don't get them out.
but here's the thing. Here's the thing. I would argue that that should not be reason enough for people not to get angry, because what you will see, what has happened in a few other countries, and I just want to touch on this before we circle back to the UK, so that we're not talking about other countries or Nigeria especially, is that because of the reaction of the government, people have then looked at taking their anger inwards. So people are now blaming themselves, and which is what you mentioned. People have now retreated into ethnic politics or ethnopolitics, and that anger that should have been targeted at those who put people in that position is being taken out on neighbors, and that is even more dangerous. And if you come back to the UK, that is what we're seeing. Yes, we've had successive governments who sadly have messed about with the economy, but rather than say or that own up, I mean, good luck with that. Rather than own up to having messed up the economy, they're saying, "Oh, look, it's those people." But the interesting thing is, you mentioned the AI, and I've been thinking about it for a while. And if you follow the trends, we've talked about that poem. Uh, First they came for the Jew,
Naimola.
yeah, Martin Mola. But I think in modern days you can add an extension that, let us say that for some reason all the immigrants decide to up and go, whichever whatever color you are, and you leave. We still haven't stared down the threat. Yes, people will see the opportunities, but still haven't stared out the threat of AI. Because once every other person is gone, it's all about the money for these people who are staring divisions. They will still look for ways to have what you will call efficiencies. It's still the same workers who are there. And it's not going to be about,
So
whether you're native or not. The AIs will take people's jobs,
yeah, so
and there'll be no
again,
migrant to blame.
yeah, it's one of the reasons why at work in Nigeria I organized that AI training for my units. Where at the end of the day, we must understand that the horse has bolted. So I can go back and give examples. Let me just do that very quickly because many of those examples were actually here in the UK, even though they are historical examples. So think of the Ribbon Loom riots in the 1600s, because weavers were rioting because weaving machines had been invented, which made for more efficiency. Now weaving machines are, I mean, 400 500 years later, weekly standard. Think of the Luddites. When during the Industrial Revolution, they went about smashing machines in places like Leeds. Machines for work are a part of life now. So think about every time there's a change, there's an improvement, and efficiencies is just the very nature of capital and capitalism. They will always try to look for the cheapest way to do stuff to increase output. So AI is here to stay. We just need to learn to walk around it. And I think that in the current AI race, I think that there are two models that are evolving. There's the Western model and there's the Chinese model. This for ease of simplicity, for simplicity of description. So these are just two broad categories. And I think that the Chinese have better applications. So Chinese AI tends to be used in industrial applications more than Western models, which tends to focus on LLMs. It's something that needs to be discussed,
Large
but
language
yes,
models.
but that's slightly beyond my pay grade. I'm just a
you,
bloody geopolitical analyst.
just
So
to throw a little bit of chaos in there, and it's quite interesting when you talked about the applications of both AI models. So the Western models, yes, LLMs, what they're doing basically is, more efficiently, let's use that, doing the jobs that humans will do, especially in, let's say, the services or computing, or you're analyzing data. So that means where you would have had two analysts pouring through lines of data over a week, these AI models will do that in seconds, or in minutes. So that means at some point you're asking yourself, hmm, you know what? Why am I paying two people when I can maybe pay one to use the AI? And then
Going back, going
after
back
a
to
while, you
going
start
back to
having
what
AI
I said.
agents.
Going
you know,
back to what I said. In my organization, three people moved on. One of the,
such
yeah,
a nice way of saying it. Moved on.
they were not fired. So they were not
Okay,
fired. So
all right.
they moved on. Basically, two of them were pushed by bigger beasts.
Mm.
So that the kind of thing that you can't do anything about
Now,
it.
even you'd
The,
be happy for them. You'd be like, well
they
done,
are
well
saying
done.
you are not village people, so you happily say, okay, well done you. And then one of them left Nigeria for a master's program.
Mm.
So again, it's the same kind of situation. You wish them well.
Yeah.
These people were good at what they do, but what happened in those three cases was, hang on, we don't need them, because
Mm.
the data sets that they used to analyze and do reports on, we would simply run it through the company pays for an AI agent. We'll run it through. Where I tend to quarrel with people is many people will just run whatever they're running through AI and then give it to you like that. No,
Mm.
you
Without
actually have to do
analyzing,
the
of
work
course. Yeah.
to look at what the AI has done, to cross check and verify, and in many cases rewrite.
Yeah. And
Um,
so the chaos I wanted to throw in there, it was little bit of political chaos. So that's what we've spoken about is the Western AI use, and the Chinese are doing that industrially. So is it far flung, or is it too much of a stretch of the imagination to say that as the Western uh, hemisphere uses its AI around the idea of capitalism, that at some point you would see a revert or a push for more socialism? Because if AI is putting people out of work, you have to get people doing something. That is, I'm not saying answer it now. It's just a little chaos I want to throw in there. Are we about to see an upending
it's
of
in
political
in a
order?
funny way. I can give a preliminary answer because again, given what I do for a living, it's one of the things that we have gained. Um, what will happen eventually? Because what you're asking is something that we've kind of modeled in the office. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, and it's not an accident, we think, that in historical terms, um, uprisings, I don't want to say revolutions, because
Mm.
pretty much until the French Revolution, it was usually uprisings. But
I mean,
uprisings,
revolution is where, sorry to cut you, but revolution is where after the fact, and then someone wants to write the history and
yeah,
then
but no,
gives it
but
branding.
it's a discontent. Yeah, so
Mm.
a revolution is an uprising that went to school, if I were to use a Nigerianism. But
Yeah.
it's not an accident that
Mm.
such uprisings usually happen maybe a decade or 2 decades after a major change.
Mm.
These are so we are going to see. I mean, and if you look around, again on my recent movements, I also spent a very short period in France. So and we happened to arrive in Paris the day there was this major strike, and then I'm coming back to Europe after. So, as you know, so there was France, there was Senegal, there was Nigeria, it was a lot of work. Coming back, and the French government had collapsed, and a lot of it is not just politics of the right. A lot of the underlying reason is discontent. French people have shown their discontent in the polls. They voted for uh, this hydra that you can't really describe, where the two biggest parties in parliament now are the far right and the far left. That's it. And we know that the far right and the far left can never work together. So that essentially is chaos.
I mean,
And Macron,
how many prime ministers have you had
exactly. Macron
already?
is trying to find a middle ground somewhere, but he's increasingly unpopular because His system no longer works. But rather than admit that, okay, there's a distinct economic thing. So there's a lot of discontent. So here, the prime minister is talking of raising retirement age. In France, raising retirement age is to use the French word, interdit. So how do
Please,
you
for
do that?
please, for us, I don't speak French. What does that mean, Biko?
Forbidden.
Ah, right.
How do you navigate that? So France is going to be in problems for a while to come. And given how quickly the French are, because of history, how quick they are to start setting bonfires in various places. The way we carry tires in Nigeria and the way the English just drink increasingly hot cups of tea. There's every possibility that we are going to see chaos in France sometime within the next 5 years. And when I say chaos, I mean proper chaos.
And that chaos should squarely be put at the feet of Macron, who called the
Yes, I
snap
agree.
election when he
I
did
agree
not need to.
completely.
Like someone said, I think it was Roy Stewart or so. It was almost like the young man in him just couldn't see reason. But anyway, um, let's go for a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll dive deeper into what uh this economic do I say downturn or just the economic situation means for our community.
No wahala.
Welcome back to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
And I'm Cheta Wanze.
All right, so Cheta, in the first part of this episode, you painted a rather rosy picture of what we can hope to look forward to, especially as uh, AI marches down every office block through every office space, snatching people out of jobs and replacing them with microchips. It was quite the picture, Cheta. But let's.
You've become very British with your sarcasm. Hmm? With passport now.
Yeah, so
They
she
are
said
qualified.
she said we have to now start doing a A-level English. Oh dear Lord. Um is interesting. Please
Let's not even go
yeah,
there. No,
let,
but
let's
I can
not.
go and bring my WAEC results from 1997. I
No,
had an 8.2 in English.
no, apparently you have to do it again, even though it's quite interesting when people say to me, "Oh, you speak well." I remind them, look, Nigeria was colonized by the English, which means English was forced, or by the British rather, which means uh English was forced upon me as a learning language, as a corporate language. But still, Cheta, in order to prove that I speak English, I still have to go and pay 130 something pounds or thereabout for
That's TOEFL.
no, for IELTS.
Sorry,
Yeah,
IELTS, yeah.
yeah. For
138, yes, I
yeah,
remember.
for IELTS to prove that I can do this thing I've been doing for 43 years of my life. But hey ho,
Well,
it's
I don't have to do that because I have two masters from British universities.
lucky.
Yeah. Nevertheless,
I went to other state university.
but nevertheless, it's still. I mean, one thing that I would say is don't be arrogant about it because in the text there can always be um one banana skin or the other that you can slip upon. I'll give you an example. Um, I failed my first driving test. This is me that had been driving since 1996.
Okay, no,
And
Cheta. Wait. Let's on that driving, on that driving. I'll be surprised if a lot of our people pass it the first time because our driving and driving is quite different.
no. I see. If you can survive Lagos like I did, or like I used to do, without scratches, you can survive it. You're a safe driver. They should be handing you the license as you're coming out of the plane at Heathrow. Like,
Manchester, when I went back to Nigeria early in the year. I actually asked myself, hang on, did I drive like this? Because it's a how- the driving is our Nigerian mindset. It's a hustle, it's a bustle, like out of my
it's
way,
a
or so it's quite
it's a
interesting.
very offensive operation in Nigeria
Yes,
as compared
yes,
to here. And
yes.
you have to be offensive, otherwise you will not get to where you are going.
So which is why I don't begrudge. therefore say, look, all of you, you have to come and take your driving test again because
I take the other approach. What they should say is, if you can survive in that madhouse, you can drive anywhere safely.
no, maybe what you should have done is gone to do a army training driving, in which case you won't even need any, or maybe close protection driving, in which case
Why are you
your
telling
Nigerian
me? Why are you
experience.
telling me this just now?
Oh, look, I'm just thinking about it. But anyway, look, Cheta, enough of nostalgia. Um, so as we said in the opening statement, a lot of people from our communities are in the service sectors, and with a lot of jobs being cut or vacancies being cut, and a lot of them also being swayed by the vicissitude of politics. And by that, I have a few examples of people who had job offers, but it had to be withdrawn because either the threshold for sponsorship for them had been increased, so the job offers they had earlier had now they couldn't be sponsored anyway, more or less by that. um you're looking at vacancies on sites like Indeed and the rest, but you keep applying and you're being told unfortunately you can't. But, in the same at the same time, you still have to take care of yourself, you still have to take care of family, and knowing the communities we come from, you have to take care of people back home. How do you survive in an environment where you are, to use the phrase you used earlier, increasingly being squeezed, yet there are people back home who are
Oh, no, hear
convert
word.
who will not hear what, and are also looking at the exchange rate and saying, come on, man, you should be able to squeeze out a few more, you should be able to squeeze out 10 more pounds. How do you survive?
Well, the person who can answer that question is the real hero. The fact is, they so let's take the UK specifically. Again, I think I'll be at pains to stress that this is a general thing. I've spoken with some of my friends who ended up in Canada, and they are going through the same thing. There are shrinking opportunities, and of course labor cuts, and then there's waning confidence in the economy. Um, I think that one thing that people will have to do to survive is to basically, and many of our people are actually doing this already, they swallow the bitter pill and take jobs that are beneath you, as it were. I'm not saying that a man who is over 45 should go and start lifting, carrying weights at Amazon warehouse. But
But there are a lot of them doing that.
yes, I know, and
Yeah,
there are health implications to that.
yeah, yeah.
One of the things that a lot of our people don't consider is the fact that you could be so at a certain age. There are certain jobs that are, to put it bluntly, young men's jobs. Um, Another thing that a lot of our people do is they do a lot of shifts because they need to they want to be able to keep up the appearances, keep sending money home and all of that. At some point, and this is not a very nice advice to give, but it's a reality. You may need to be able to tell. I wouldn't say do not give to your people. At the end of the day, as we say in Igbo, "Obala bo obala." So you can't turn your kinsman away. But you may need to be able to you may need to have to find some strength to put your foot down on some requests, because the unfortunate fact is that some of the requests tend to be very unreasonable. It's largely because people look at the exchange rate, and um, I mean, there's this story that we were told of someone who she sent money back home. I think it was £30, which 30 pounds at the current exchange rate is 60,000 naira.
And some
And
change.
yeah, and the person basically told her, the person who she was sending it to basically sent back a very insulting message. Said, I have paid your 60,000 naira into your account. And what's the the people who she was complaining to told her was, at least thank God that you now have some one less person to give money, because if that person comes to ask again, you have every right to tell them that they were ungrateful the last time, and that do they think that you pluck this money from trees? Because that, unfortunately, is the way so many people back home look at it. Many people, and to be fair, it's a dilemma that people freshly arrived in these parts face because of the high units of denomination from our part of the world. When we come this way, we behave. You tell somebody that, oh, so and so is £90, and he's like, oh, £90 is not a problem, because in his head, £90 is like 90 naira. So people need
I
to be
think
able to, pardon me.
I think everyone fell into that trap at some point or the other.
Yeah, so people need to be able to explain to people back home that, number one, unlike back home where there's the um where we tend to be more slack, if I'm to put it like that. So we tend to be more forgiving. Um, this environment is not forgiving at all. So if you don't work, especially as an immigrant, if you don't work, you will not eat. It's that simple. So for me to be able to send money to you back home, I need to be able to first take care of me and the people in my immediate charge, meaning my children.
And talking about sending money back, and I completely agree. There are people who are not just asking you to please send something, they are now specifying, excuse me, how much you should do because, they've, as we mentioned earlier, they've done the conversion rate on your behalf. They are even more up to date with what, especially the black market rates are. But there's also something that I see happening, which is people using either peer-to-peer methods of sending money home, which at some point becomes it's almost like you're taking a risk. And I've seen a few people who have messaged me because being a counselor, you also hear all sorts. People have said, "Oh man, I gave this person money so that they can send, I gave this person some pounds so that they can send X naira back home, and suddenly I can't find the person. But who's this person? Where did you meet them? Oh, we're in one WhatsApp group together." And I'm like, "Why on earth are you doing that?" There are a lot of uh
Apps.
apps, there are a lot of available methods that are financially regulated, through which you can use. Yeah, but there's that thing of, oh, well, this person said and that person said that they are good and that we went together. You do need to be
Again,
a lot more circumspect.
you as someone who's a politician, it's something that you can. So what you are saying, what you are describing, is the effect of the low trust that we have for anything official in our society, and this is the result of years of colonial rule and then years of military rule.
Yes,
So
but sorry, but I don't think it's not just low trust. It's also the I think for a lot of people, it's also the conversion cost because they're trying to maximize how much you send.
it's at the end of the day, it's about low trust, because whether you like it or not, for good or ill, the Tinubu government back in Nigeria has, in many respects, deregulated the currency. The naira is floating as freely as it's would as it has ever had in our lifetimes. There's no That's the outrageous differences that we had, for example, at the start of the Buhari era, where the official rate was 199 and the black market rate was 430, does not exist now. The official rates and the parallel market rates are close together, that it doesn't make much of a difference. The issue remains that when you send through official means, it's taxed. And even with the new tax bill that has been introduced in Nigeria, there's even going to be more oversight. And many Nigerians, again, because of our history, the history of extractive governance governments that we've had, many Nigerians simply do not trust official channels. So there's the underlying mindset of, why should I do something that the government can take a cut of when the government does not provide me anything? And it's a legitimate mindset to have, given our history.
Yeah.
But given these issues, such as what you have described, because I have also heard quite a few of those stories as well, people need to be able to say, okay, is it people need to be able to make a rational decision. Is it better to pay quote and unquote Tinubu and his goons with their long convoys? Is it better to pay them 20% of what I'm sending? Or is it better to take the risk that I might do a P2P transfer and somebody will just disappear with 100% of the money? These are the devil's alternatives that face us as a people.
Yeah, but and that's quite true. I mean, I can't argue with that. But it's not just Nigeria. It's not just Nigerians. You have people who are in Ghana as well. Tinubu is not president of Ghana.
Yes.
You have
Go on.
Ethiopians. You have
Yes, go
Ugandans.
on. Yes. You
I see what you're
haven't
doing.
you haven't named one country that does not have a history that gives them low trust.
Rwanda.
Uganda,
Rwanda.
Rwanda. Precisely. So
Yeah, but I get you. But yeah, it's yes. There's that low trust, but there's also the need. Really, I think when you look at the official channel, and it's well, one £10 is probably going to come out to maybe 50 units of whatever your currency is officially. Meanwhile, it to come out at 55. You're thinking maybe a little more goes. But yeah,
see,
whatever,
I am very
whatever one
I'm
feels.
I'm very tempted. So the official rate for the pound as of this morning is 1945. Mm?
As if
That's
you're
the
sending
pound
to
to the naira.
Nigeria, yes?
Yeah, the pound to the naira. While the parallel rate is 1989. So that's yeah, so that's it's about it's about a 44 naira difference. In the grand scheme of things, 44 naira is I'm aware, I'm painfully aware that this sounds like someone speaking from a position of privilege, but in this grand scheme of things, 44 naira is not something that you should take that risk. That's my view. 44 naira is not what you should take the risk. It's now using some apps, and I'm going to be at pains I'm going to be at pains not to name these apps
Oh,
right now.
don't
So
name them.
no,
They're not.
I'm not going to
Uh,
name them because they're not paying us for
thank you.
when they pay us for sponsorship. I'm aware of such things. So yeah.
Remember our institute. In fact, not even it's not institutional.
So the
The
point
training in our
is,
DNA has.
yeah, the
Carry
point
on.
is you have to there are apps that also exist, and these apps are set up to make a profit. So you can actually balance between one of them. What is doing a number of people in this discussion, to be honest, is that they don't even want to use those apps. They just want to because chole amoyin on na Lagos on we naira on a chop out. No, it's not. You are not looking for such this thing. You should be able to do these things on, you know, again, as you said, an FSA regulated app, so that there's a trail and you have a hope of recovery.
So FSA, that's Financial Standard Authority.
So that's it.
Mm.
Um,
And yeah, see, I agree with you 100%. And I'm going to throw in another angle, which is closely related to this, because I think you sort of like touched on it very briefly initially when you were speaking, and when you said we want to, is it look good also for those back home. One of the biggest problems we have as a community is that I mean, well, biggest problems and well, biggest features. Let me say, biggest features of our community is that we live and move on dreams. So there's
we
that.
do appearances over substance, you know.
Yes. Cheta moved from Nigeria to the UK on Monday. By Tuesday, that means my God, he's rolling in money, and
Yes,
that is
it's
the picture everyone paints for themselves. But what we then do is because we also and I think we spoke about this in our very first episode, Cheta, where we want to do that. I better pass my neighbor or I'm better than you thing.
that wasn't our first. That was our third episode. But
Was it? Oh my god. Okay. So we set up the ring light. We set up a camera. We're on TikTok. We're on Snapchat. We're on Instagram. We're on everywhere. We're wearing our Sunday best every day. Nothing against that.
I'm not
However,
one of those. I've restricted myself to just Twitter, but
you smart.
Even Twitter, I'm not that much there anymore because
You're a smart, smart man.
Uncle Elon has turned it
Nah,
into a hell site. The place is now
it
very
is.
toxic.
Well, I have to be on those sides, being a politician and also being well, an artist, as it were, a poet. I use those sites for those s- uh, my lives, as it were. But the thing is, we do need to take ourselves out of the pressure of keeping up with the Joneses, because to keep up with the Joneses, you have to actively keep up with the Joneses. So that means people are putting themselves under that pressure, and that tells one not just on your pockets, but also your mental health. And in these climes with lowering opportunities, we do need to take care of our mental health, which is something we don't talk a lot about in our community.
Well, I mean, we've had a discussion on mental health before, and yes, it's something we don't talk about a lot. But I would build on what you have said by pointing out that this thing of trying to keep up with the Joneses and all of that actually leads to a lot of stress, which could lead to high BP, which could lead to hypertension. So yes, it's actually a very important topic that deserves an entire discussion on its own. And I think what we should do is try to find a psychiatrist, a doctor who can do a lot more justice to it than either of us can,
Definitely.
unless you did some medical training that's
No,
I know
even
nothing about.
no, even me, I need that session. But I think lastly, and I hate to say this, but until things get to where a lot of people are judged on the merits of their experience, one trick I've sadly seen that works when people are looking for opportunities, except if you're a coconut head like me and you just carry on. A lot of people.
For our non-Nigerian audience, you need to explain what coconut head
Oh,
means.
coconut head means you're stubborn. That's the is yeah, your head is hard like a coconut, it's just stubborn and
But coconut means something very different to the Brits.
aha, aha, yes, well that's true. I found that when a lot of people are looking for opportunities, again, I keep stressing sadly, what has helped them is to use a different name on their CVs, or an English or a Christian name, if you may. Because what happens is that some of the systems that filter CVs are, um,
Racist. Let's not. Okay, let
yes.
me.
No, no,
Yeah,
I was about to say
racist is a
automatic
simple word, but they have it. So the technical term is implicit
bias,
bias.
implicit
Yeah,
bias, yes.
they have the bias of the people who program them. I
Yeah.
would say racist, but
Oh
that's
no,
me
but
being
no,
that's
but
me going on the offensive.
no, but is institutionally racist. The job market, especially the recruitment market, is institutionally racist to a large extent. And but the question is, you're stuck between you're stuck between. Do I want to go for the ideal of my name shouldn't matter, which is what someone like me does. I've never changed my name on a CV. But hey ho, that's me. But you're also stuck between, do I really want to get, and I've seen examples, of I know people who were searching for months on end, nothing. But immediately they changed the name on the CV, suddenly they had at least opportunities to come for interviews. It's sad, but it's something that until we get to a place where there's at least no need to do that. And because you also know that you need to take care of yourself and your immediate family is something that people need to think about. I would not say do it, but I'll say think about, because I don't do it.
Well,
However,
personally, I would say do it if that is what it takes. I'm all for doing whatever needs to be done to get ahead, provided it's not illegal and provided it's not unethical. So, if simply changing your name to because personally I don't understand why Cheta is difficult to pronounce, and I don't understand why Cheta or Chetachuku is not seen as a Christian name because it is a Christian name. Um, but I get it. I completely get it. So my advice to people would be, if changing your name to a name straight from the Bible that is your legal name would help you get that job, then go ahead and do it. Do whatever you need in order to survive and thrive, provided it's not illegal and it's not unethical.
And on that, yet another bombshell of a
How is that
thought,
a
Cheta.
bombshell?
I mean, you just drop these nuggets, and they just have this finality to it.
It's some practical advice for
No, no, I'm not saying that's bad.
everybody.
So I'm not using bombshell in a bad way. As in, it's so profound. I could just add,
Wow.
yeah,
You
so
you
it's.
owe you owe me a cask of palm wine. Hmm?
I will, my elder. All
Uh,
right,
yes,
Cheta.
this is a good time to remind you that I'm older than you. So
And
you're supposed to name my uncle.
in fact, the funny thing in my village, you'll definitely be in a different
Age group.
age group. So you'll be the ones when you want something, you're not saying, "We can't bring this thing for me," and I'll be there,
Yes,
yes,
now.
yes. Yeah, but we're here now, so anyway. On that note, Cheta, we'll draw a curtain, and then we'll see you at the next one.
See you next week.